The Great Hall of Station Nexus Prime was filled with representatives from 47 different species. Some had scales that shimmered like jewels. Others had bodies made of living crystal. A few existed as clouds of glowing gas contained in special suits. They had all gathered to hear Ambassador Zethral of the Corvina hegemony present his findings about the newest species to achieve faster than light. His four eyes scanning the crowd, he was tall and covered in dark green scales. His people had been part of the Galactic Council for 6,000 years, and he had served as a diplomat for 2 centuries. He had studied hundreds of species. He thought he understood them all. Honored members of the Council, he began. I have spent 3 standard cycles observing the species known as humans. They come from a small blue planet called Earth, located in an unremarkable star system on the outer edge of the galaxy. He waved his clawed hand, and holographic images appeared in the air. They showed human cities, human farms, human families, going about their daily lives. At first glance, they appear to be a typical carbon-based species. They are physically weak compared to most Council races. They have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. Their senses are average at best. A single Corvani warrior could defeat 10 of them in physical combat. The representatives murmured in agreement. This was not unusual. Most intelligent species evolve beyond the need for physical strength. But what makes humans truly interesting, Zethral continued, is their relationship with conflict. New images appeared. These showed human monuments and memorials. Stone walls covered with names. Massive graveyards filled with white crosses and stars. Museums dedicated to past wars. Humans are obsessed with remembering their conflicts. Not celebrating them, remembering them. They build these structures to honor their dead, and they teach their children about the horrors of war from a very young age. Counselor Mirovex leaned forward. She was a Sindari, her body made of living crystal that caught the light and scattered it in rainbow patterns. Are you saying they are pacifists? I am saying they are afraid, Zethral replied. Deeply, genuinely afraid of war. Their literature is filled with stories about the tragedy of conflict. Their leaders give speeches about peace and diplomacy. Their most popular entertainment shows war as something terrible and destructive, never glorious. He showed clips from human films and television. Soldiers crying over fallen friends. Cities reduced to rubble. Children orphaned by bombs. Families torn apart by violence. They have holidays dedicated to remembering their wars. Days when they stop working and gather to mourn those who died. They do not celebrate victory. They mourn loss. This is not the behavior of a warrior species. This is the behavior of a species that has been broken by conflict and never wants to experience it again. High Chancellor Warmesh, the ancient leader of the Council, considered this information carefully. His species, the Warmesh, had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had achieved this not through war, but through patience and diplomacy. They had never known true conflict. The last major war in the galaxy had ended 8,000 years ago, before most current species had even achieved spaceflight.
Hey, this is excellent news,
Warmesh said. His voice was soft and carried the weight of millennia. The human system is strategically valuable. They control 3 major trade routes and have access to rare minerals in their asteroid belt. A species that fears conflict will be easy to bring into the Council on favorable terms. Ambassador Zethral nodded. I recommend we send a delegation with our standard integration offer. Given their fear of war, I expect they will accept whatever terms we propose. The Council voted unanimously in favor of the plan. 3 weeks later, on the planet Earth, Secretary General Patricia Holloway sat in her office in Geneva. She was a woman in her late 50s with gray hair and sharp blue eyes. She had spent her entire career in diplomacy, working her way up from a junior translator to the highest office in the United Nations. The discovery of alien life had changed everything. Suddenly, the petty conflicts between human nations seemed small and foolish. The world had united faster than anyone expected. A single government now represented all of humanity, and Patricia had been chosen to lead it. Her aide knocked on the door and entered. Ma'am, we've intercepted another transmission from the alien fleet. They're discussing their approach. Patricia took the datapad and read the translation. Her expression remained calm, but inside, she felt a cold anger building. They think we're afraid. It appears so, ma'am. She pressed a button on her desk. Get me Admiral Burke and Dr. Patterson. Immediately. Admiral Kevin Burke arrived first. He was a tall man in his 60s, with a face weathered by decades of service. He had fought in 3 wars before the alien contact, and he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen the worst humanity could do and survived. Dr. Linda Patterson came next. She was younger, in her 40s, with dark hair and glasses. She was Earth's leading expert on alien languages, had been working around the clock to understand the Council's communications. They've been watching us for 3 years, Patricia said. They've seen our memorials. They've studied our history. And they've concluded that we're cowards. Admiral Burke read the intercepted messages and allowed himself a small, grim smile. They've confused wisdom with weakness. Can we fight them? Patricia asked. Burke considered the question carefully. Their fleet is large and advanced. They have ships that can destroy cities from orbit, but they've never fought a real war. Everything they do is based on theory and simulations. They don't know what it means to face an enemy who refuses to give up. Dr. Patterson spoke up. I've been studying their history. The last major conflict in their galaxy was 8,000 years ago. Since then, every dispute has been settled through diplomacy or minor skirmishes. They've forgotten what war really looks like. Patricia nodded slowly. Then we need to remind them. Are you sure about this? Burke asked. Once we start down this path, there's no turning back. They will bring everything they have against us. Patricia stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city of Geneva was going about its normal business. People were working, shopping, living their lives. They had no idea that an alien fleet was approaching, ready to demand their surrender. My grandfather fought in World War II, she said quietly. He never talked about it much. But I remember one thing he told me before he died. He said that the worst thing about war wasn't the fighting. It was knowing what you were capable of. He said that humans are the most dangerous creatures in the universe because we hate war so much that when we're forced to fight, we hold nothing back. She turned to face them. We will not surrender. We will not accept their terms. And if they want to take what is ours, they will learn why humanity fears war. Admiral Burke stood at attention. What are your orders, ma'am? Prepare our defenses. Quietly. I don't want to panic the population. But when that fleet arrives, I want them to understand exactly who they're dealing with. Burke saluted and left to begin preparations. Dr. Patterson lingered for a moment. Do you really think we can win? Patricia smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I think they have no idea what they've started. The alien ships arrived on a Tuesday morning. 12 massive vessels descended from the sky, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They were shaped like elongated teardrops, their hulls covered in weapons that gleamed in the sunlight. They moved with a grace that seemed impossible for objects so large, hovering above the Geneva spaceport like metal gods come to judge the world below. People stopped in the streets to stare. Children pointed at the sky. News cameras captured every moment as the largest ship lowered itself to the ground and a ramp extended from its belly. Ambassador Zethrael walked down the ramp with 50 Corvani warriors behind him. They were impressive creatures, each one standing over 7 feet tall, with scales that shifted color in the light. Their armor was ceremonial but functional, designed to show strength without appearing aggressive. They moved in perfect formation. Every step synchronized. Secretary General Patricia Holloway waited for them with a small delegation. She had deliberately kept her group small, herself, Admiral Burke, Dr. Patterson, and 2 aides. No soldiers, no weapons. No show of force. Zethrael noticed this immediately. He had expected fear, perhaps some attempt to impress them with human military might. Instead, he found a middle-aged woman in a simple suit, standing calmly as if she were greeting visiting diplomats rather than representatives of a galactic superpower. Ambassador Zethrael, Patricia said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. Welcome to Earth. Zethril did not take her hand. Physical contact with lesser species was not customary for Corvani diplomats. Secretary General Holloway. The Galactic Council extends its greetings to the human species. We are here to discuss the terms of your integration into galactic society. We are honored by your visit, Patricia replied, lowering her hand without showing any embarrassment. Please, let us talk somewhere more comfortable. She led them to a conference room in the nearby United Nations building. The room had been prepared with care, but it was modest compared to the grand halls of the Galactic Council. Simple chairs and around a wooden table. Water and refreshments available for those who could consume them. Nothing flashy or impressive. Zethril sat at one end of the table, his warriors standing at attention behind him. The humans sat at the other end, looking small and fragile by comparison. I will be direct, Zethril said. The Galactic Council has observed your species for some time. We have determined that your solar system contains resources valuable to the wider galactic community. Your position along 3 major trade routes makes your cooperation essential for the prosperity of all. He produced a data tablet and slid it across the table. These are the terms of your integration. You will provide unrestricted access to the mineral deposits in your asteroid belt. You will permit Council military vessels to establish permanent bases within your system. You will limit your own fleet to defensive vessels only, with a maximum size determined by the Council. In exchange, you will receive protection from external threats and limited rights to participate in galactic trade. Admiral Burke picked up the tablet and read through the terms. His face remained neutral, but Patricia could see the tension in his shoulders. These were not terms for equal partnership. They were terms for subjugation.
I see,
Patricia said carefully. And if we wish to discuss modifications to these terms, Zethril's 4 eyes blinked slowly. These terms are not negotiable. They have been approved by the full Council. Every species that has joined the galactic community has accepted similar terms. It is the natural order of things. Older, more advanced civilizations guide younger ones until they are ready for full participation. How long does that usually take? Dr. Patterson asked. Several thousand years, typically. Your species is very young. You have much to learn. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Ambassador, I appreciate your directness, so I will be direct in return. These terms are not acceptable to humanity. We are willing to negotiate a treaty based on mutual respect and equal partnership, but we will not become a subject state of the Galactic Council. Silence fell over the room. Zethril stared at the human woman as if she had suddenly grown a second head. I do not think you understand the situation, he said slowly. The Council fleet is the most powerful military force in the galaxy. We have hundreds of ships, thousands of weapons capable of destroying your cities from orbit. Your entire species could be eliminated in a matter of days if we chose to do so. I understand the situation perfectly, Patricia replied. But I also understand something you apparently do not. Humanity will not be threatened into submission. We have spent our entire history fighting for our freedom, sometimes against enemies far more powerful than ourselves. We would rather die on our feet than live on our knees. Zethril stood abruptly. You have 1 planetary rotation to reconsider. When the sun rises tomorrow, I will return for your answer. If it is not the answer the Council expects, there will be consequences. He turned and walked out of the room. His warriors following in perfect formation. Patricia sat in silence for a long moment after they left. Then she turned to Admiral Burke. How long do we have? If they follow through on their threat, probably 72 hours before a full fleet arrives. Maybe less. Can we hold them off? Burke was quiet for a moment. We've been preparing for something like this ever since we made first contact. We have 37 ships, mostly converted cargo vessels, with weapons attached. We have orbital defense platforms around Earth and Mars. We have ground-based railguns and missile batteries. That doesn't answer my question. No, ma'am. I suppose it doesn't. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the alien ships still hovering over the city. We can't match them in a straight fight. They have us outnumbered and outgunned. But war isn't about fair fights. It's about finding your enemy's weaknesses and exploiting them. And what are their weaknesses? Burke turned to face her. They've never lost. In 8,000 years, they've never faced a real challenge. Every conflict has been a foregone conclusion. They don't know how to adapt. They don't know how to fight when things go wrong. They don't know what it means to face an enemy who would rather die than surrender. Patterson spoke up. Their communications suggest they expect us to back down. They're not even preparing for a real battle. They think showing up with a big fleet will be enough to scare us into submission. Patricia nodded slowly. Then we need to show them how wrong they are. Admiral, implement whatever plans you have. Dr. Patterson, I want you to monitor all their communications. I want to know everything they're saying and thinking. What are you going to do? Burke asked. Patricia stood and straightened her suit. I'm going to address the people of Earth. They deserve to know what's coming, and they deserve to choose how we respond. That night, Patricia Holloway spoke to a global audience of 8 billion people. She explained the situation calmly and clearly. She told them about the Council's demands and humanity's refusal. She told them that war might be coming, that many people might die, that the future of their species hung in the balance. And then she asked them a simple question. Should we fight? The response was overwhelming. From every nation, every culture, every corner of the Earth, the answer came back the same. Yes, the Galactic. Council's war fleet was the most impressive military force assembled in 3,000 years. 200 warships gathered at the edge of the Sol system, their hulls gleaming with weapons capable of turning planets to ash. Corvini dreadnoughts formed the core of the fleet, each one carrying enough firepower to level a continent. Sindari cruisers flanked them, their crystalline hulls refracting starlight into rainbow patterns. Warmash battle cruisers hung at the rear, ancient vessels that had seen a dozen minor conflicts in their long service. Fleet. Commander Rathker stood on the bridge of his flagship. The endless victory, watching his forces assemble. He was old for a Corvani, nearly 300 years, and he had commanded fleets for most of that time. He had never lost a battle. Of course, he had never fought a real battle either. His victories had all been against minor species who surrendered the moment they saw the Council's might. He expected this engagement to be no different. All ships report ready, Commander, his aide announced. Excellent. Begin the advance. Standard formation. Let's show these humans what they're dealing with. The fleet moved forward in perfect formation, 200 ships arranged in precise geometric patterns. Every captain knew exactly where they were supposed to be. Every weapon was calibrated to fire at optimal efficiency. It was a beautiful display of military precision. Admiral Kevin Burke. Watch them approach from the command center of Orbital Platform 7, humanity's largest space station. It hung in Earth's shadow, hidden from direct observation by the planet itself. Around him, officers monitored sensor displays and communication channels, tracking the enemy fleet's every movement. They're maintaining standard formation, Commander Nicole Grant reported. She was Burke's second-in-command, former fighter pilot who had transitioned to command after losing an eye in a training accident. The artificial replacement she wore now could see more than any natural eye. No scout ships. No advanced reconnaissance. They're just coming straight at us. Burke nodded. They don't think they need to be careful. They've never faced an enemy that could actually hurt them. Should we engage? Not yet. Let them come deeper into the system. The further they get from their supply lines, the harder it will be for them to retreat. The human fleet was scattered throughout the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. 37 ships, most of them small and lightly armed compared to the Council vessels. They were hiding among the rocks, their engines cold. Their systems running on minimal power to avoid detection, but the ships were only part of humanity's defense. For the past year, ever since the alien fleet had been detected approaching the solar system, human engineers had been working around the clock to prepare. They had seeded the asteroid belt with thousands of automated weapons platforms, railguns hidden inside hollowed-out rocks, clusters of nuclear mines drifting in the darkness, sensor decoys designed to confuse enemy targeting systems. The entire belt had been transformed into a killing field. Fleet Commander Rathker led his forces into this trap without hesitation. The first warning came when a Corvini scout ship exploded without warning. One moment it was there, the next it was an expanding cloud of debris and fire. What happened? Rathker demanded. Unknown, Commander. The ship just ... detonated. Equipment failure? Before anyone could answer, 3 more ships vanished. Then 5 more. Then 10. The Council fleet began to panic. Ships broke formation, trying to evade attacks they couldn't see or predict. Captains screamed orders at confused crews. The perfect geometric patterns dissolved into chaos. Burke watched the confusion with grim satisfaction. Signal all ships. Execute Protocol Gray. The human fleet burst from hiding. They didn't attack in formation. They didn't follow predictable patterns. Each ship operated independently, darting through the asteroid field like wolves hunting in a forest. They struck from unexpected angles, fired their weapons, and vanished back into the rocks before the enemy could respond. The Council ships tried to fight back, but their weapons were designed for open space combat. Their targeting systems couldn't track fast-moving targets among the asteroids. Their shields, designed to block energy weapons, offered little protection against kinetic projectiles traveling at a fraction of light speed. A human railgun round punched through the hull of a Sindari cruiser. Entering through the engine section and exiting through the bridge, the ship broke apart, its crystalline hull shattering into a million pieces. A swarm of drone fighters, each one no larger than a car, descended on a Wormesh battlecruiser. They were too small for the ship's weapons to target effectively. They attached themselves to the hull and detonated simultaneously, cracking the ancient vessel open like an egg. 3 Corvini dreadnoughts tried to form a defensive formation, their shields overlapping for mutual protection. A human destroyer captain named Sam Wright saw the opportunity and drove his ship directly at them, engines at full power. At the last moment, he ejected his crew in escape pods and rammed the lead dreadnought at maximum speed. The explosion destroyed all 3 ships. Burke watched the sacrifice in silence. He had known Wright. He had served with him for 15 years. He forced himself to keep watching, to keep commanding. There would be time to mourn later. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Council fleet had lost 43 ships. The humans had lost 4, plus 11 weapons platforms and hundreds of drones. It was the worst military defeat the Galactic Council had suffered in 8,000 years. Fleet Commander Rathkar stared at the sensor display in disbelief. More than a fifth of his fleet gone. Ships that had been invincible for centuries, destroyed by a species that had achieved spaceflight barely 30 years ago. How? He whispered. How is this possible? His aide had no answer. Burke appeared on the communication screen, his face calm and professional. Fleet Commander Rathker, I am Admiral Kevin Burke of the United Earth Defense Force. You have invaded our territory and attacked our people. We have responded with appropriate force. Rathka found his voice. You will pay for this. The Council will send more ships. We will destroy your entire species. Perhaps Burke replied, but it will cost you. Every ship you send, every soldier you sacrifice, will be paid for in blood. We do not want this war. We never wanted any war. But if you force us to fight, we will fight until there is nothing left. Is that really what you want? The communication ended. Rathker sat in silence for a long moment. Then he gave the order that no Council commander had given in millennia. All ships, fall back. We need to regroup and request reinforcements. The mighty Council fleet retreated, leaving behind the wreckage of their fallen ships and the bodies of thousands of their warriors. On Earth, people watched the news in stunned amazement. They had won. Against impossible odds, against an enemy that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, they had won. But Burke knew better. This was only the beginning. The Council would not accept defeat. They would come back with more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. The real war was just starting. He looked at the list of casualties. For ships, 87 crew members, 87 families who would receive notifications, 87 names to be added to the memorials that the aliens had so badly misunderstood. Bert closed his eyes and allowed himself one moment of grief. Then he opened them and began preparing for the next battle. The great hall of Station Nexus Prime had never been so quiet. Representatives from 47 species sat in stunned silence as Fleet Commander Rathker delivered his report. The holographic displays showed the wreckage of council ships drifting through the asteroid belt. They showed the bodies of warriors who had expected an easy victory and found death instead. Hi. Chancellor Warmash listened without expression. He was ancient, even by the standards of his long-lived species. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had guided the council through countless crises. But he had never seen anything like this. 43 ships, he said, when Rathker finished. You lost 43 ships to a species that achieved spaceflight 3 decades ago. Rathker lowered his head in shame. The humans fought like nothing we have ever encountered. They did not follow any military doctrine we recognized. They hid among the asteroids. They used weapons we did not know existed. They sacrificed their own ships to destroy ours. They fought without honor, without rules, without any regard for their own lives. Counselor Mirovec spoke up, her crystalline body flickering with agitation. This is impossible. Our ships are the most advanced in the galaxy. Our warriors trained for centuries. How could primitive humans defeat them? Ambassador Zethrel stepped forward. He had spent the past week reviewing every piece of data about humanity he could find. He had studied their history, their culture, their art, their science. And he had finally understood his terrible mistake, because we were wrong, he said. We were completely, utterly wrong about them. He activated his own holographic display. Images appeared showing human history, but not the memorials and museums he had shown before. This time, he showed the wars themselves. This is what humans call World War I, he said. It lasted 4 of their years. 20 million of them died. They invented weapons specifically designed to kill each other more efficiently. Poison gas. Machine guns, tanks, aircraft. They threw themselves at each other in trenches filled with mud and corpses, fighting for inches of ground. The images changed. Cities burning. Mushroom clouds rising over Japan. Soldiers storming beaches under a rain of bullets. This is World War II. 70 million dead in 6 years. They built bombs that could destroy entire cities in an instant. They created death camps where millions were murdered simply for being different. They fought across every continent, every ocean, every environment their planet offered. More images. Jungles full of traps. Desert storms, hiding ambushes. Urban streets where every building could hide an enemy. They have been fighting each other for their entire existence as a species. They have invented more ways to kill than any civilization in galactic history. Chemical weapons. Biological weapons. Nuclear weapons. Weapons that can destroy their own planet many times over, Counselor Mirovex interrupted. If they are so violent, why did your initial report say they feared war? Zethrel turned to face her. Because they do fear it. That is what I fail to understand. They fear war not because they are weak, but because they know exactly what they are capable of. They have seen what happens when their species goes to war. They have lived through horrors that would break any other civilization, and they have sworn to never repeat those mistakes. He pointed at the images of human memorials. These monuments are not celebrations of peace. They are warnings, reminders of the darkness within themselves. Every human child is taught about the costs of war. They learn about the Holocaust. They learn about Hiroshima. They learn about the trenches of the Somme. They are taught to be horrified by what their ancestors did. Chancellor Warmash finally spoke. You are saying that humanity restrains itself deliberately. Yes, they have spent the last century building systems to prevent war. International organizations, treaties, diplomatic channels. They do everything possible to resolve conflicts peacefully because they know what happens when peace fails. But when peace does fail, Warmash asked. Zethrel was silent for a moment. When peace fails, they become monsters. They have a saying, in war, there are no rules. When they are forced to fight, they fight to win. They do not care about honor or tradition. They care about survival. They will use any weapon, any tactic, any strategy that gives them an advantage. They will sacrifice their own people if it means victory. They will burn cities and poison lands and destroy everything in their path if they believe it is necessary. He looked around the chamber at the horrified faces of the council representatives. Made the mistake of thinking their restraint was weakness. We thought we could bully them into submission because they talk about peace and build monuments to their dead. But their restraint is not weakness. It is discipline. It is the discipline of a species that has looked into the abyss of its own nature and chose to step back. Fleet Commander Rathkar spoke up. What do we do now? We cannot simply accept this defeat. The authority of the Council depends on our military supremacy. We have two options, Zethral said. We can send a larger fleet. Perhaps we can overwhelm them with numbers. But how many ships are we willing to lose? How many warriors are we prepared to sacrifice? The humans have shown that they can fight. They will not surrender easily. Even if we win, the cost will be enormous. And the second option? Warmesh asked. We can negotiate. Not from a position of dominance, as we originally intended, but as equals. We can admit that we misjudged them and offer a genuine partnership based on mutual respect. The chamber erupted in argument. Some representatives demanded immediate retaliation. Others counseled caution. The debate raged for hours, with no resolution in sight. Finally, a communication request arrived from Earth. Admiral Burke's face appeared on the main display. Members of the Galactic Council, he said, I am Admiral Kevin Burke of the United Earth Defense Force. I am authorized to speak on behalf of the human species. The chamber fell silent. You have invaded our territory and attacked our people. We have defended ourselves. We are now prepared to discuss terms for ending this conflict. Counselor Miravex leaned forward. You are in no position to demand terms. You won one battle. We have hundreds of ships remaining. Burke nodded. You do, and we have prepared for them. Right now, there are nuclear weapons hidden throughout your fleet's expected approach routes. We have seeded the outer solar system with enough mines to destroy 1,000 ships. We have prepared our people for a long war. Every city has evacuation plans. Every factory is ready to produce weapons. Every adult human has been offered military training. He paused and let his words sink in. We did not want this war. We have never wanted any war. Our entire civilization has spent the last century trying to move beyond violence. But you forced our hand. You threatened our freedom, our sovereignty, our right to exist as an independent species. So we will fight. We will fight until we have nothing left. And when the last human falls, we will make sure we take as many of you with us as possible. His voice softened slightly. But we would prefer peace. We would prefer to join the galactic community as equals, to share our knowledge and learn from yours. To build something together that benefits all species. The choice is yours. You can continue this war and pay the price for every victory. Or you can recognize that humanity is not your enemy, and never was. High Chancellor Warmish stood slowly. He was older than human civilization itself, and he had never felt so uncertain. What terms do you propose? He asked. A treaty of mutual respect. No demands for resources or military bases. No restrictions on our development. Full membership in the galactic community with all the rights and responsibilities that implies. In exchange, we will release your prisoners, return the wreckage of your ships, and commit to peaceful cooperation with all council species. Warmesh looked around the chamber at his fellow representatives. He saw fear in their eyes. Fear of the humans, yes, but also something else. Respect. We will consider your proposal, he said finally. But I believe we may have much to learn from humanity after all. The negotiations lasted 3 months. Secretary General Patricia Holloway traveled to Station Nexus, Prime with a delegation representing every nation and culture on Earth. They brought translators and diplomats, lawyers and historians. They also brought something unexpected: gifts. Human art hung in the corridors of the station. Paintings by masters old and new. sculptures carved from wood and stone, photographs capturing moments of beauty and sorrow. The alien representatives walk past these works every day, studying them with curious eyes. Dr. Linda Patterson gave lectures on human history. She did not hide the darkness. She spoke of slavery and genocide, of conquest and colonization, of all the terrible things humans had done to each other throughout their existence. But she also spoke of resistance and liberation, of justice and redemption, of the slow, painful progress toward a better world. "We are not proud of everything our ancestors did," she told the assembled council members. "But we do not hide from it either. We remember because we must. The moment we forget what we are capable of, we risk repeating it." Admiral Burke met with the military leaders of the council species. They were suspicious of him at first, these warriors from civilizations that had never known true war. They saw him as a barbarian, a savage who had somehow stumbled into the stars. But Burke did not brag about his victories. Instead, he told them about the costs. He showed them the faces of the 87 crew members who had died in the battle. He read their names aloud, one by one, and spoke about their families and their dreams and the lives they would never live. "Every name on this list is a tragedy," he said. "Every death diminishes us. We do not celebrate our victory. We mourn our losses and pray that we never have to fight again." Fleet Commander Rathker, who had led the failed invasion, asked to speak with Burke privately. They met in a small room overlooking the stars, two old warriors who had seen too much. "I do not understand your species," Rathker admitted. "You fight with terrible ferocity, but you take no joy in victory. You speak of peace while preparing for war. You honor your enemies even as you destroy them." Burke considered the question for a long moment. "Have you ever killed someone, Commander? Not ordered their death, not pressed a button that launched a weapon. Actually looked into their eyes and ended their life with your own hands?" Rathker shook his head. "Corvani warriors trained for centuries, but we rarely engage in direct combat. Our wars are fought at a distance." "I have," Burke said quietly, "more times than I care to remember. And every time I saw myself in their eyes. A being with hopes and fears, loves and hatreds, a whole universe of experiences and dreams. And I had to end all of that. I had to take everything they were and everything they could have been and turn it into nothing." He looked out at the stars. "That is why we fear war. Not because we cannot fight, because we can. Because we know exactly what it costs, not just in ships and resources, but in souls. Every soldier who kills carries that weight forever. We build our monuments not to celebrate victory, but to remind ourselves of that burden." Rathker was silent for a long time. Finally he spoke. "I think I begin to understand. Your restraint is not weakness. It is the wisdom of those who have looked into the darkness and chosen to turn away." "Yes," Burke said, "but we never forget how to look back." The Treaty of Nexus Prime was signed on a Thursday morning, Earth time. Patricia Holloway represented humanity. High Chancellor Warmesh represented the Galactic Council. 47 species witnessed the agreement that would reshape the galaxy. The terms were simple. Humanity would become a full member of the galactic community with all the rights and privileges that implied. There would be no tribute, no restrictions, no military bases. In exchange, humanity agreed to share its knowledge and participate in the collective governance of known space. But there was one additional clause. Added at Patricia's insistence, the Council would never again issue ultimatums to any species. Disputes would be resolved through negotiation, not intimidation. The threat of force would no longer be an acceptable diplomatic tool. "Why is this so important to you?" Warmesh asked as they reviewed the final draft. Patricia thought of her grandfather, the old soldier who had fought in a war that killed 50 million people. She thought of the trenches and the death camps, the mushroom clouds, and the refugee columns. She thought of all the humans who had died throughout history because someone decided that force was easier than talking. "We have learned that violence is always the last resort of those who have failed at everything else," she said. "We want the galaxy to learn that lesson without having to pay the price we paid. Warmesh nodded slowly. Perhaps humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy will not be your weapons or your ferocity. Perhaps it will be your wisdom. The treaty was signed. The war was over, and something new began. In the years that followed, humanity spread across the stars. They built colonies on distant worlds and forged friendships with species they had once faced in battle. They shared their art and music, their stories and dreams. They learned from the ancient civilizations of the Council and taught them in return. Admiral D. Burke retired to a small house in Montana, on a piece of land that had been in his family for generations. He spent his days tending a garden and writing letters to the families of those who had fallen. He never spoke publicly about the war, never accepted the medals and honors that were offered to him. He simply lived quietly, at peace at last. Dr. Patterson became the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council. She spent decades building bridges between species, helping them understand each other across vast gulfs of biology and culture. Her work on xenolinguistics became required reading at universities across a dozen worlds. Patricia Holloway served 2 more terms as Secretary General before stepping down. Her final speech was broadcast to every planet in known space. "We came to the stars as strangers," she said. "We were met with suspicion and hostility, and for a moment it seemed that war would consume us all. But we found another way. We showed the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength is not our capacity for violence, but our capacity for growth. We fear war because we have seen its true face, and that fear has made us wise." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "Let this be our legacy. Not the battles we won or the enemies we defeated, but the peace we built from the ashes of conflict. Let future generations remember that when humanity was tested, we rose to meet the challenge not with hatred, but with hope. We proved that even the most warlike species can choose a different path. In the centuries that followed, humanity never started a war. They never needed to. The galaxy had learned the truth that humans had known all along. The most dangerous warriors are not those who love battle.